Hey everyone, welcome to my first One Piece deck profile. Today's video will be featuring the purple Kaido deck. But before we get started, I wanted to show off these new imports that I will have on my website with the link down below. These are The Devil is a Part-Timer, 65 count by Chara. They are standard size, so they do fit One Piece. And I did finally get new oversleeves in. So we have the blue hexagon that I really love, and then I also have golden arrows also imported in. With that, let's get started. So the starter deck Kaido, I like this one better, even though I rarely use the Dawn -7 to essentially take a life, and they don't get to add that to hand. That goes right into the trash. There have been times I have used this and basically guarantee the win. It's like really late game and I'm sure they're not getting another turn, or I'm sure I'm gonna die if I don't finish them in that current turn. I do like this better though compared to the blue-purple Kaido in the deck, in the set, because this one at least has 5 life. The other one has 4. It isn't really any faster because I know it gets a Dawn for knocking out something, but it's only faster if you knock it out by attack. Because if you use something like Who's Who and anything else that KOs, you're gonna put a Dawn back to activate that KO, so you're not really, it's not really accelerating your Dawns. So I'd rather have the extra life to survive an extra attack and possibly an extra turn, so buying the time to get more Dawn. All right, first card I'm featuring is Onigashima. Basically, tap this, get a Dawn rested. If you don't see this in your opening hand before your redraw, just shuffle your hand back and try to get this. Everything else in this deck is incredibly big. You really need to accelerate your Dawn. The small stuff are like your blockers. You don't really need out too early anyway. So really search for your Onigashima Island. All right, so I play, this is one of the best cards, 2 of this Kaido. Basically, when it comes out, it blows up the entire board except himself. And that includes your field. And it is a -6 Dawn though, so it is kind of costly. But I mean, I'm only playing 2 because it is very situational. If you're falling behind, your opponent has a crazy big board and they've just been taking your stuff out, or you can bait them where you let them use their attack on your stuff, and then you drop this out and then blow up their board, so you essentially lost nothing and you basically had the attacks directed to your other characters. This is especially devastating against stuff like Kid, where they set up the big 8-cost Kid and then a bunch of little blockers to protect it in case you did drop something like a Kaido. Not like this Kaido, the other Rush Kaido. Anything like big, all the little blockers would protect it from the attacks. Well, you could just drop this Kaido and, blow up the board. All right, next we have 3 of the starter deck Kaidos. This one is really good because it's -5 Dawn, pop something, and then it also gets Rush. But it only pops a character with a cost of 6 or less. So that is still pretty big. 6 are, your opponent's big attackers. Any of their bigger blockers are only going to be 6. So this comes out usually as a finisher. Or, if it's early enough and you can afford it, drop it out, pop something that they had just played, and then swing. They'll never expect they don't really ever expect the Rush. All right, 2 kings, 2 of this king, right? Because this is a Dawn -2, which is why I don't want to max this out or at least even play this at 3. So it is a Dawn -2, but you essentially get to pop a 3 cost and less and a 2 cost and less. This is really just devastating against stuff like Red, Green, Law, and then like Zoro, any kind of faster decks, right? And remember, you do want to buy time with this deck because you do need to speed up the Dawn. But again, this is a 7 cost, so it's not like that quick to come out. And then when it does come out, it is a -2 Dawn. Later in the game, if you have this, it would be like the turn before you're going to finish them off, and you can use this to pop their little blockers. This won't be using it as an attack, and your other attacks will be, most of this deck is pretty strong in attack, so they don't really need the Dawn power, but it is still good to have for a finisher. So you'll be using this, like the turn before, you expect to finish them. Or, I mean, if all they have is, you know, they play a bunch of little blockers, you play this and then you swing with your other big units to go for game. It is helpful for that, although it doesn't have any shield, so like sometimes you know, against other decks, sometimes I just discard that. This is the better king, in my opinion. It is a 6 cost, so you could play a little bit faster. Also 7k power, which is amazingly good, and it's only a -1 Dawn, but it can pop a 4 cost or less, right? There's a lot of devastating 4 cost cards, so you definitely want to just get rid of them with this. I love that king, actually. 4 X Drakes. So 2000 counter, really important. Sometimes late in the game, Dawn -1 force your opponent to drop a card. They do get to choose though, but it is still a really good card. I mean, we play other stuff just for the 2000 counter in most decks anyway, but this is actually a decent on-play effect as well. 4 Queens, blocker, on play, Dawn -1, draw 2, trash 1. If you have any extra Onigashima Islands, you know, your extra kings, whatever, trash them that you don't need. Trash them, you know, basically recycle, draw 2. We play 4 ultis, literally just for the 2k counter. A lot of decks just play a bunch of stuff just for the 2k counters. Like green plays a lot of Apus just for the 2k counters. Basically, same reason we play this ulti, you know, just for the 2k counter. 2ks are really good. 3 jacks. This jack, I really do like it. I haven't gotten to use it too much. It is a Dawn -1 when attacking, so you really will need, like, it really will be like 2 Dawns, because you have to put a Dawn on top of him for that 4 to hit a 5, and then -1 Dawn to force your opponent to trash. But yeah, it's still good to have. It's still a decent attacker at 4k. So next we have, I'm going to show these at the same time because they're essentially the same effects. All right, we have 2 jacks and then 4 Sakagi. So the difference is jack is on play, discard a card, and you go ahead and get your extra Dawn. And then Sakaki is when attacking, so you do have to wait a turn. You have to attach 1, and then you do have to wait a turn, but you still trash 1 to get a Dawn and rest it. So the reason we play Sakaki over Jack, even though Jack is that immediate return, is just because it is a 2k counter. So you don't usually want to use these anyway, but if you don't see Onigashima Island, you're going to need to turbo some other way. Sakaki is at least reusable if your opponent doesn't get rid of him, so that also makes him a target. So yeah, that's why Sakaki over Jack. All right, next we have 8 blockers, right? Again, this deck is mostly focused on the bigger cost cards to do massive damage. So it doesn't matter if you see these in your opening hand. If you don't have Onigashima Island, just put them back. But yeah, there's nothing special about these. These are literally just blockers. There is a blocker that isn't out for us yet that makes this deck really good. It's the Uta blocker from the film starter deck. That is essentially like a double disruption because it not only blocks, it also suspends something by -1. So it's like that Punk Gibson where, you know, it suspends something. So it basically can stop 2 attacks. All right, next we have 2 Thunder Banguas. I only play 2 because I don't like leaving. I mean, having 2 unsuspended Dawns, I mean, you really do use up a lot of your Dawns really quickly. So it doesn't have, I mean, you really have to plan it. Like you would have to play your bigger cards the turn beforehand before you can actually even use this. But it does have a really neat trigger ability, trigger, add 1 Dawn, and set it as active. So, you know, but if you do use this, if you have 2 or less life, you get to add 1 Dawn and then rest it. So this one is much better, Blast Breath. Dawn -1, so you pay the 1, you just put it back, and then 4k, right? So enough said. But yeah, this is a incredibly strong deck. It has like no problems winning against like anything right now. Like even rush decks can't really compete with this right now. This is like one of the best decks, and I believe it is actually the highest win ratio decks in all of Asia that they've been playing the last few months during this format, during the set 1 format. So this is actually really good. It does fall out a little bit in the set 2 format just because Red Zoro is just so dominating in that deck, or in that format, because of all the minus powers, and then they get to like start swinging like on turn 2 because they play a bunch of 1 cost and stuff, and it's just too fast for this. But for now, this is incredibly strong. I would really recommend this, giving it a try. Thanks for watching.